Hey, I want to talk about 3 negative mindsets that I had to overcome as I was starting my handyman business 4 years ago. If you don't know who I am, my name is John. I own a business called Dakota Small Jobs in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We are a professional handyman business. And I can tell you this, my business looks a lot different today than it did 4 years ago when I was just getting started. And I love to create content here on TikTok that deals with entrepreneurship and the home service business and the handyman industry specifically. I also run a community called Handyman Starters where we help handyman businesses launch and grow. I've got guys all over the United States that I'm helping out. So I love doing that, love creating this content. And if you haven't followed me yet, I would encourage you to do that. I try to create content here that adds value. So let's dive into these 3 mindsets that I mentioned a minute ago. So first of all, when I was starting my handyman business years ago, I dealt with what is commonly known as imposter syndrome. Have you ever heard of that? It's this little voice that lives inside of your head that basically says, who are you to do this? Like, other people can do this, but not you. You know, you're not a business owner. You don't know how to run a business. You're not a contractor, you're not a builder, you're not a handyman, you don't know how to do these things. Who are you? It's constantly there, that imposter syndrome. And in my case, it's like, man, never mind the fact that, I've been doing these types of jobs for years as a homeowner and as a friend, helping other friends, and I've had a lot of experience doing this stuff. But the voice, the imposter syndrome says, no, you can't do this. Never mind the fact that I had spent, almost 2 decades in pastoral leadership, leading a church and building a staff and dealing with some of those leadership issues. And yet here's this voice saying, you can't do this. You don't know how to do this. So imposter syndrome is a real thing. And would you believe me if I told you that that's never really gone away? That at every level of business growth, there's still that little voice in the back of my head going, that's not for you. That's someone else. They can do that, but not you. Here's what I want to say about imposter syndrome. Like so many other negative narratives that kind of are operating in the background of our mind. One time I heard Brene Brown say this. She said, it's okay if it comes along for the ride, but you can't let it in the driver's seat. So, okay, imposter syndrome, get in the back. I know you're going to be there on the journey. You just sit in the back and be quiet most of the time. You don't get the steering wheel. So as a business owner, you just got to push through that and say, I do belong here. I will figure this out. Many other people have figured it out, and if they can, so can I. So that's the first one, is imposter syndrome. The second one is fear. And this can go in a lot of different directions. What was I afraid of? Well, let me count the ways. I was afraid of failing. What if this doesn't work? What if I spend money and invest money into getting a business started and the whole thing goes under and now I've lost all that money? What are people going to say? What are the guys at the fire station going to say? They're going to laugh at me. Some of them, they're going to make fun of me. Some of them, it's coming from a good place and they're just kind of saying they love you by how they mess with you and insult you. And others are going to say things that's actually a little bit mean and maybe coming from their own insecurities or jealousy. But nonetheless, I'm insecure. And what are the guys going to think? What are my neighbors going to think? What's my community going to think? Especially, let's go back to that part about what if it fails? Now what's everybody going to think? Can you hear all the fear in that? What if? Again, fear's going to be there probably every step of the way. Get in the back seat, fear. You don't get to drive. Just sit down and shut up back there and try not to talk too much. But I'd be lying if I told you that I feel fear on a regular basis as a business owner. I have laying in bed at night staring at the ceiling thinking about a job I have to do the next day going, man, I don't know if this job's going to go very well or not. So fear's a part of the journey, and I would love to tell you I've conquered it and never feel it, but I would be lying if I said that. The third one might surprise you a little bit when you hear me say this. I had to overcome a feeling of self-pity. I felt sorry for myself for just a moment when I was starting my handyman business 4 years ago. And thankfully, I was able to kind of reframe quickly and coach myself through that negative narrative going on in the back of my mind. But for a brief moment, I kind of felt sorry for myself. Like, man, you shouldn't have to be out here doing this in your 40s. Like, look how far you've fallen. Poor, pitiful you. I was heading out one day early in the journey of my business, had the little CRV loaded down with tools, had a couple customers I was going to go do some work for. And yeah, there was, if I'm being honest, a little bit of self-pity there. Like, I shouldn't have to be doing this. But I was able to reframe that very quickly instead to say, like, man, what a privilege. I get to be in business for myself. I get to set my own schedule. I get to work on my terms. I get to go serve people today, and they're going to pay me money, and then I can provide in better ways for my family through that provision. So what a privilege instead of poor, pitiful me. But again, like, would you be surprised to hear like that was a thing? And so I don't know what you're dealing with, if you're thinking about starting a business or if you are, well on your way of getting your business going. But here's what I do know. Chances are really good you've got some negative narratives going through your head as well. And my encouragement to you would be at every level, just push through the negativity, push through the discomfort, push through the imposter syndrome, push through the fear, push through the self-pity, reframe those things, tell those negative voices to get in the back, to sit down, to be quiet, and keep moving forward. And if there's anything that I can do to be of service to you along the way, please don't hesitate to reach out, shoot me a message, leave me a comment in this video. But hopefully this has been helpful. Thanks a lot, guys, for listening, and